So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. If you're watching us live, I am here with the brilliant award-winning lifestyle blogger April Harris, who will be talking today about how blogging can help you stand out. So for those who don't know me that well, I run Distinctive, where I work with small businesses, either hands-on with them or teaching them how to put marketing strategies in place so that they can market more smartly and stand out. And so April, as I've mentioned, is an award-winning lifestyle blogger, and I'm very, very interested in hearing what you have to say. But just to get us started, it'd be brilliant to just hear something, learn something about you, find out a bit more about you.
Oh, hi. Well, it's lovely to be here today. So I've been a writer for my whole life, I think, it's ever since I could write. But I've been blogging since 2002 when I started a website to create some community around being a housewife and stay-at-home mum with a small child.
Yeah.
But basically the website evolved into a blog as blogging began. So I was really on the sort of cutting edge of it and went into it and have been there all the time. So it's been a really exciting journey, and it's been great to see how things have evolved and how blogging went from sort of something that was just almost very insular and quite small to something that's become a really powerful tool and a powerful way of communicating.
Yeah, so you've been here, as you say, you're one of the pioneers, I think. You've been there pretty much since the beginning of blogging. So as you said, it's to see it evolve into, as you say, something very, very insular into something that's really, really powerful, a powerful tool that, you know, some businesses have flown based on the success of their blogging.
They really have, and I think that's behind the sort of connection that it can create with your customers and give you that sort of, it makes you a real, either a real person or a real entity, and that's something that can resonate with your client base and really give you a strong way of building community and also an empathy with your customers and then with you.
Yeah, as you say, sort of building that sort of so they can relate with you, so you build that emotional connection with them. And again, that's something that I'm very keen with when I'm talking to my clients, is about the importance of, if you want to stand out, if you want to get cut through, it is about building that connection so people can relate to you, just basically making you more relatable to them. And as you say, blogging is a great way of doing that. If you can just talk through how would that work? How does that work?
Well, if you're blogging as an entrepreneur or a small business or a large business for that matter, you really want to find out what makes your customer tick, what gives them, what's their problem, what do they need solving, and how your product and service can mesh with that. Equally, you don't want to be talking about your product and service all the time. You want to share a little bit of yourself, and you can decide to create a sort of a persona and only share so much. That's absolutely fine, but just giving a little bit of yourself so that your clients can then give a little bit back. And then there's that sweet spot where they just really want to know more about you and they really want to buy what you're selling.
Because as you say, you've found that sweet spot with them, and again, it's about actually creating that sort of that understanding and finding that way of, as you say, what makes them want to, where that connection is, what that bond is with you and with the clients.
Exactly.
Very much so.
Exactly. And I think, 9 times out of 10, when someone is selling a product, they've generally been drawn to that or service. They've been drawn to that because of a need that they've had. So you've already got a point of connection there. And I think it's also about interacting within it. So it's not just about writing the blog post, but if there's a space for comments, or you're talking about it on social media, it's actually interacting with your clients and making them see you as a real person.
Yeah, as not as an entity, as somebody that they can relate to. And as I think, as you say, so you recommend having comments at the bottom of blogs to be able to actually build that relationship.
I think it's really useful because you've got that sort of conversation that you can get going. You do need to keep an eye on them. And I think people sometimes worry about comments because yes, people can write whatever they like, but most platforms do have a delete button. So you can delete a comment if it's really unhelpful. also it can sort of get a conversation going. If someone does say, well, I'm not really sure about this, it gives you a chance to perhaps explain something that, you know, you might be doing face to face, but it's just a nice way of doing it. And then you've kind of got it there as a record. People do, if it's something they're really interested in my experience, people do read the comments on the blog post. So it can be another way of A, answering their queries, and B, creating that community between your readers, which again, can be really powerful and effective.
And expanding on a point.
Yes,
as well, expanding
exactly.
very much on a point with them. So yeah, as you say, to actually build that relationship with them. So yeah, so so in terms of how does blogging, in terms of actually, so we're speaking about how it can build that emotional connection. So it's very much about, once you've got them there and you've got them engaged, and as you say, using the comments and giving them a chance, the opportunity to actually to get to know more about what you are. As you say, you can answer questions, you can expand on points that perhaps in the blog, and build that connection with them more. How do they find the blog in the first place? So how can actually, or find the web, you know, find the blog, find the website, how does actually putting the blog there, how does having a blog actually help you, your business, your information, your website be found?
I'm really glad you raised that, because it's so important. Sometimes people will start a blog and they'll just write things randomly. And if you don't know about search engine optimization, you might as well not bother. The whole thing is to get your blog and your business noticed by Google. So you need to have some of that embedded in your website, which would be something that your web designer would do. But when you're writing blogs, you want to be talking about keywords, which are basically the main focus of what you're talking about. So for example, if a stylist was writing a blog about fall fashion colors, the keywords might be colors for autumn 2021. So, and you're focusing on those keywords, and those are the things that Google's going to pull out. And if you can use your SEO techniques effectively, and there's lots of ways of doing that that you can delve quite deeply into, that's going to pull you up in the rankings in Google. And that's where people are going to find you, because at the end of the day, so many people, when they're looking for something, type things in. So you're wanting to really focus on those keywords.
And I think that goes back to sort of understanding, really sort of getting into who your target audience is, who your ideal client is, understanding what drives them, what, you know, why would they be looking for the information that you're putting forward in your blogs, what problems you're trying to solve for them, and then they're going to be putting those keywords in. So again, it goes back to actually really understanding your target audience, and in order to make that emotional connection with them and to build that bond, I think it's all very much interlinked, isn't it, with the keywords, because again, if there's no point putting a set of keywords into your blogs if they're not going to cause that, they're not going to build that connection, they're not going to be what people are looking for.
Exactly. And you need to structure the posts that you write on your blog. You need to structure them in such a way that it makes the keywords shine. And there are ways and techniques of doing that, and use of subheadings and internal and external links, which can really, it makes Google very happy, and their little bots will push your results higher, which at the end of the day is what you want. It's also about looking at what your product or service does in a different way. So how many different ways you can write about that, not just that your product or service does one thing, but that, you know, it might relate in a totally different way, where you could be talking about something that seems completely removed from it, and then draw back to how that product or service can enhance that particular experience. That can be very effective as well.
So again, about enhancing, about how it solves the problems or enhances their life or their experience, as you said, particular experience you're writing about.
Exactly.
Can you give an example of that?
So for example, if you were selling, say, jewelry, you're not actually, someone might be looking for a necklace, and yes, they might be Googling a particular kind of necklace. But actually, if you're writing a blog post, what you really want to talk about is feeling confident when you're out, and maybe feel confident because you're wearing a lovely piece of jewelry. Or another way could be marking an occasion. You know, how do you make an occasion memorable? And you could do that with a piece of jewelry. Just looking at all different ways of bringing that product into be a problem solver in a situation where it might not necessarily have been thought of before.
So it's about those, again, going when I was what I talk about drivers, it's like why, what are those key emotional things, reasons for people to actually want, and as you say, in the case of jewelry, it's about making you feel more confident. Is it appropriate for a certain occasion? Does it link with a certain occasion that will also help build those bonds and those connections as well? So
and today, especially with people being in the scenario that we're in and all the emotions running so high, having that emotional connection to your product or service, if you can, for example, when I was talking about perhaps the jewelry marking an occasion like a birthday or an anniversary or something where at the moment, you know, we can't have a big party, but you've got this beautiful thing that's going to last forever. That's another way of sort of spinning.
Okay, I see. I see. Instead of, yes, it's a way of actually, it's creating memory in a different way.
Exactly.
Every time you see that, you'll remember that that was given by a certain person for a birthday, and yeah,
on that occasion. And I may not have had a party, but I have this amazing thing. Or so you can do that with just about anything, really.
Yeah. So it's pulling at the heartstrings, essentially. And again, that's what creates those bonds. And again, it doesn't have to be jewelry. And I say your area is lifestyle blogging, but again, I work with a range of businesses who, you know, I've worked with IT businesses, I've worked with HR, I've worked with recruitment, and again, it's not so obvious where you can pull those heartstrings, but you can. It's about, again, going back to really understanding what the ambitions, what the fears are, what the hopes are of the person that you're selling to. And if it's in a business and not necessarily a person, that person's still going to be a person. So thinking about what those fears and those ambitions and those hopes are, and writing about how you can, what benefit what your service or your product does brings to that person in helping them sort of enhance what they're doing or overcoming a challenge.
And it can open up new markets to you as well. For example, this might not be a big market for web designers, but if you think about people suddenly now, we're thinking about our lives and our histories and our memories. And, you know, it would be a way of saying to someone, well, actually, if you had a family website, we could design a beautiful family website for you. And then you could fill in all the information and that's going to last forever. And suddenly you could be selling a website package to someone who wouldn't have thought in a million years they want a website. So there's lots of different ways of using a blog to talk about that and sort of draw people in that way as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a richer form of, say, marketing, so to speak, because you can go into so much more depth as well.
Yes, and there's an intimacy to writing something. I mean, this is one of the things I do stress, though, is I always say that it's great to have someone proofread your things, or if you work very closely with the copywriter so that they really know your voice. But if you're writing your own blog post, which I personally feel is the most effective way of doing it, you're sharing something of yourself, and you're just giving that resonance that is it's something that your clients really want to buy into. People aren't just buying a thing, they're buying an experience around the thing, even if it's
an emotion,
even if it's a service, how it's going to make them feel, how they're going to be more confident, for example, perhaps in their own business, in their own marketing, you know, buying that service that a person is offering and having that resonate with them, that they're going to help them, encourage them and be that for them. So you could write around that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. So what's your stance on the whole storytelling side of things as well in blogging?
I think it's very valuable. I think the trick with blogging, it's not like speaking in the sense that you do have to structure the posts in such a way that Google will find them. But I always recommend writing it first, writing from the heart, and then taking it and optimizing it for SEO so that it.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So you write it first. So you're saying write it first, and then you structure it. You go back and structure it to optimize it for.
If you were going to be writing something that really comes from the heart, yes, absolutely. I mean, personally, there are certain things that I write that I have a certain way of doing them. But if I'm writing a post that's about self-improvement, or that tells a story, or that's about travel, or that's a personal thing, then definitely I write it all first. And then I go back in and go, okay, I've probably got a pretty good idea of the keywords, but in terms of the structure, I'm going to do that afterwards, because otherwise you don't get that flow. You're so busy writing for the SEO that it starts to sound stilted, you know?
Yeah. And people see straight through that it's been written for the for optimization, as opposed to actually this is a blog that's been written with my customer in mind, from my heart. And
It's like those blog posts when you read, you read the keywords 97 times, you are absolutely 100% sure by the end of the post what the keywords are. If your client can see what the keywords are straight off, you've probably not done it correctly. You want it to be organic, and you want it to be, I mean, a blog is one-sided in that you're writing something and putting it out there, but you want it to create conversation.
And again, as you say, we were talking about the comments earlier, so it could be conversation, it could be comments within the blog itself, but also if you then post it in social media, as you say, to actually
yes. Or even if it creates conversation with the person themselves. So they read your blog post about perhaps
interesting
you're offering, and then you're thinking in your mind, you're sort of thinking, well, actually, that would be really nice if I could feel that way, or I could do my business in that way, or this would really enhance my business. I wonder if I should do this. Gosh, maybe I'll do some research. And it can lead your customer to, because they're actually, I mean, I suppose it sounds a bit simplistic, a conversation with yourself, but it provokes thought.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so again, the whole thought provoking, so actually get you to go through that thought process and go, actually, how do you say, ask and answer questions that you wouldn't have done before to yourself.
I need this service. I need this, in my life. This is going to make my life better. And you suddenly, you've got a customer there.
Yeah, out of it. And again, that's essentially how a blog can actually turn somebody from just not even knowing about you straight away into a customer potentially, just through you've taken them on a journey through reading your blog.
Your aim is to make your readers become customers. I mean, not for me with what I'm doing when I blog as a business, but when you're blogging for your business, your aim is to make your readers become customers. I'm more making my readers become customers of other people, or eventually it might be of something that I'm selling. But yes, you want your readers to become a customer, and you want to really create that feeling that you're kind of embracing them in a whole ethos and a lifestyle, even if it's just a product or service.
Yeah. So it's just, I think that's the whole thing around sort of building brands and being able to stand out, and is you're not just selling a product and service, as you say. It's an experience, it's an emotion, and blogs can have play a very important role in building those emotions and those experiences and those connections and those bonds that we've been talking about with your target audience. So we've been talking about helping other businesses get customers. So you have recently become a blogging coach. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
So what I do is I work with clients who, it's important to understand that blogging isn't for everyone. It's not for every business. It's not always an effective tactic moving forward. But that said, if it is for you, I can help people to find their voices and to work with SEO so that their business comes to the forefront, and that they can connect with their audience and increase custom and their bottom line by doing that.
Yeah, so leveraging blogging as a key tactic to, as you say, get customers and build their bottom line. It's, as you say, from what you've been saying, it's a very powerful tool if used correctly and if deployed correctly. And just to say, you've got how many people have you got following your blog right now?
So I have an active community of 33,000 individual visitors a month. So it's not really like followers, but that's the kind of number of people that come and visit every month and have a look.
Brilliant around. Fantastic. So you're somebody who knows, you've been there, you've built your blog, you've got a lot of valuable experience that you can actually share with people starting out on their blogging journey, or people who've been blogging, how to finesse.
Some people do have blogs and they're like, well, they're not, it's not accomplishing anything for me. And in a lot of cases, a few simple tweaks and techniques and just learning the basics of how to use it effectively. You can't just, write a few words and throw it out there. It's got to be done in such a way that it's going to be found. If Google doesn't find your blog post, you've wasted your time. You have something that's going to come up, and I can help people to do that.
Yeah, and you've experienced, I think you were telling a story about one certain well-known chef. You blogged, I'm not going to name, but a certain well-known, you managed your blog ranked higher than hers on the recipe, because
it was a bit naughty because I didn't mean to do it, but I had made one of her recipes. I had actually, you know, said it was one of her recipes. I had linked back to her website. I had been quite transparent about the fact that I had altered it slightly. But I mean, as this chef says, until there are new ingredients, there'll be no new recipes. So I've been very transparent. But when I did the SEO, I actually used the title. And when I was checking into some of how some of my blog posts were performing, it was doing very well. And I looked and I Googled that chef's recipe, and my listing is number 1 and hers was number 2, which, I mean, I would be very embarrassed if I actually came across her, but it does show that the SEO was good.
It's right. So you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. So anyone interested in blogging, April's got some packages up on her website. So we will put a link in the comments below this live, along with this live, and we will say go and check them out. Again, if you are interested, if this is something you're interested in blogging and further finding out more about, you know, either you're starting out as a blogger or you want to improve your blogging, then April's a good person to talk to about that. And also, I know we have several web designers in the group as well, and there's definitely some synergy with what April does and with those of you who are building websites and designing websites, just because, again, a website isn't an island, and blogging is a fantastic way of getting your website found, getting it ranking. As April says, she's able to get ranked above even the person who the source person. So as was the case with this well-known chef. So yeah, so that is April. Thank you for joining me. As it's fascinating. I think it's one of those ones, everyone talks about blogging, but there is an art to it. I think there's a lot, as a great way, and something that as I said earlier, it's building connections, emotional connections with your clients, your ideal clients, is a key way, in my opinion, of being able to stand out to them. And blogging is an excellent, you know, fantastic tool if done properly, like April has demonstrated, to actually build those emotional connections and those bonds and stand out to your target customers. And as you say quite rightly, April, it turns them into customers at the end of the day. So I didn't mention at the beginning, we don't, unfortunately, while we're in Zoom, we can't actually see the feed on Facebook. So if anyone has asked any questions, thank you very much. If you've given us any shout outs, that's brilliant. We will respond to them once we come off this call. So if you were live following us, thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for joining us, April, and we'll both be on hand for questions following this, you know, over the next day or so. We'll keep an eye on the post, any questions of anyone watching afterwards, and, you know, on replay. If you have any, we'll be happy to answer them. So thank you very much, April, and thank you everybody who's been watching. Okay, all right. Just before we leave, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been so nice talking to you.
And likewise.
For a 15-minute call if anyone wants to discuss what they might want to do or whether a blog is for them.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. That's really generous. So again, you've got a 15-minute call with April if you want. She's happy to chat to you if you feel blogging's for you. And I say, if it is, then yeah, it's a very, very powerful tool, and April is definitely worth talking to. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.